Kingdom of Albion is changing. The land needs a ruler. King or queen? Cherished leader or ruthless tyrant? Pure or corrupted? That future has not yet been written.
Pretty much, well, every game that I can think of is very similar hero's journey. You know, it's very similar, sort of start small, work your way up to be big, some, you know, earth-shattering, terrible event coming. And, you know, I think it's, you know, when you see something that's locked in stone like that, you know, there's an opportunity to think about it in an innovational way. That's the first thing. The second thing is, it would be cool to be powerful. It would be cool to be king. But you know, to give that to you without you struggling to get it would be far less meaningful than if you had to struggle to get it. It kind of works like it does in real life. You know, our politicians, the rebels in the world that are around there, you know, they can promise anything they like on their journey to be, you know, to taking power. And, you know, every culture, it seems to me, in the world has the politicians the same. They promise the earth, the moon, and the sun before they're elected, and then when they're elected, you know, you don't get any of those three. So, you know, that was pretty simple. And so the mechanic that we looked at is this, you know, simple thing where, you know, people will say, look, I will follow you, but you have to do this stuff for me. And then when you're king or queen, when you're king, you have to promise that you're going to do this. And you actually have to sign a bit of paper which they give back to you when you're king. And then when you become king, people will come to you and say, look, you promised this? We want, you know, the money you promised, we want the lands that you promised us back, we want you to close the factories and turn them into schools. You know, there's a whole variety of these promises. At the end of Fable 2, we kind of looked at all the items which were important. We wrote a list of things. Hey, these are important to Fable. You know, the hero, you being a hero, you feeling powerful, the morphing stuff was unique to us. The dog was a really big success. The breadcrumb trail was really a success. And we started to say, hey, with these big successes, how can we make them much better? You know, so for the dog, for example, we kind of said, you know, he's a bit too well behaved, isn't he? He needs to have more of a character in it. So we introduced to his mind this utter hatred of rabbits. It sounds a bit trivial, but it's actually quite an important dramatic point in the game. The breadcrumb trail, it's not only when the breadcrumb trail is there, it's when it's not, it's how brightly it shines and what it's pointing out. I think there's been some really good work done on that. And then all of the GUI stuff needed a complete reinvention. All of the combat stuff needed to be really, the combat was goodish, but it was a bit disjointed. It didn't flow. It didn't make you feel powerful, and, you know, there wasn't enough to experiment with there, so we reinvented, you know, thinking of reinventing that combat stuff. The drama and the story, you know, the drama, you know, the story of Fable 2 was very formulaic. You know, there's a really big bad guy and you have to go and beat up the bad guy, and we sort of questioned about that. Pretty much, well, everything that you can think of has gone through sort of major thoughts. Yes, well, we got this idea that if you pull the left-hand trigger, you reach out your hand. And at the point of reaching out your hand, a lot of things happen. We measure the relationship with the thing that you've reached your hand out to. You know, if you just met that person, you might want to shake their hand, depending upon your own alignment, you know, whether you're good or evil and your social standing. You know, that person may kiss the ring on your finger, or they may shake your hand, or they may just bow down in reverence, or they may just not, you know, move their hand back. Once you've grabbed some of them by the hand, or once you've made physical contact, if you then move the thumbstick, that then defines what happens next, so that if someone is of equal standing, they'll walk hand in hand with you along by their side. If they've got something to show you, they'll sort of be pulling you along. If they feel they don't want to move, you can start dragging them along. They can change their emotional state at any time, so you could be walking hand in hand with someone, they would then get frightened and start pulling back, they get terrified and then just really pull back. You might have to end up dragging them, or even, you know, sort of physically almost carrying them. All of these things are possible with the touch system. The user interface, or GUI, or in Fable 1 and Fable 2 was very, very old school. It was pretty primitive. But actually there's a lot of gameplay in there. You know, there's a lot of gameplay with changing costumes, with leveling up. There's a lot of gameplay with collecting. There's a lot of gameplay with, you know, planning and quests, and all of that stuff was arduous and really tough for people to do. So we said, okay, we're not going to have any 2D GUI anymore. When you press that start button, instead of a 2D interface comes up, you go to your regal chambers. They're called your guild chambers. It's kind of the center of your power, and in those guild chambers there are places like armories and dressing rooms and treasure rooms where you can see and touch and the things that you've collected and the things that you can change into. And in those guild chambers we've got one of the most famous people in the world, John Cleese, who's the father of Monty Python, and you know, he is this amazing actor that is like your butler, similar to what Alfred was in Batman, but you know, even cooler. And you know, all of that means that we've taken that horrible, clunky, old school stuff and made it really new, you know, feel new and fresh and different, and it just exposes so much more of the game to people. Yeah, there was always a standard question: is there anything else you want to say about the game? The only thing I really want to say to people is, we love what we do. We feel so amazingly proud that 3 or so million people in the world have enjoyed Fable, and we take that super seriously, amazingly seriously, and you know, we really believe in the world that we are crafting, and we are going to do everything we can to make this a really, truly great game.
The race for the crown has begun.